So let's call the meeting to order and get going. All right. Review and approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Do we have a motion to do so?
Motion to review the meeting minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And
Moving on.
did you, before you move on, did you want to take any action on the backlog? I had emailed
Oh, sure. Let's
9 or 10
reviewed.
sets of minutes. Yeah.
I looked at those. Let's go through. Is anybody, or has everybody had a chance to review them and approve them?
The minutes?
Yes.
So the ones that were outstanding were, oh wait, never mind. Those were ones with no quorum that don't need them. So yeah, it was just,
There was just one, right? 326.
it was just March,
Oh,
which you just did, because those were the most
Mhm.
recent. I have an email from my assistant planner who was just saying that those were everything that we had. So it was just 4:15. There was a joint meeting with the Board of that was last. But again, that was no quorum. No, never mind. So all you had was the last March minutes. My
Okay.
apologies. So you're all set.
Okay, then moving on, has anybody had a chance to review the planner's report? And Michael, do you want to go through it quickly?
Yeah, I can go through it quickly, and then as part of the planner's report, I have Kevin Kuros here as well as
Mhm.
Senator McCarthy to give us a brief presentation on the programs available through Mass Development. So, and bring up my planner's report. I mean, before I highlight anything, did anybody have any questions in the planner's report?
No.
I just noticed one quick thing. I think it was in this where I think it was here where you talked about 45 Main Street having 278 units, and I think that was 27. I think it was in this, it might have been in the minutes. I can't remember, but
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
that's a
think
typo.
278 units going there. At least I hope
My-
not.
My finger hit the 7 and then hit the 8. It looks like no, it's
Right.
only 27 units. Yeah, thank you.
It was like,
Thanks for
yikes.
clarifying. Well, while I'm talking about that, I'll just note that I had contacted the DOT because I don't know if people are familiar. Obviously, you're all familiar with the TIP project that's going in. That'll include the roundabout that is, captured all the attention as far as improvements along that road. And that stretches from Brook Street as the end of project to basically to where I'll say Hartford Ave North, right? So because that's where the TIP project previously ended. But for my purposes, with what I'm talking about is the end of this upcoming TIP project ends at Brook Street, and that is also where you have sidewalks end. Is at Brook Street on 140. There is also a much smaller project that the DOT is in the pipeline that I think they'll be working on this year, which is a realignment of Prospect Street. It's minor improvements. It's just a slight realignment so that Prospect Street comes out at more of a 90-degree angle. But while they're doing that, they're giving it the treatment that they give improvements to roads, which is adding sidewalk. Adding sidewalk. But they're adding sidewalk, and that'll be directly in front of 45 Milford Street, which is why I bring it up. So they're adding sidewalk, and there will be sidewalk in front of 45 Milford Street, and then there will be a little bit of sidewalk on either end of Prospect Street, sort of around that intersection. But it won't go anywhere, right? Because they're just that project is very much focused on that intersection. And so what that generates is sidewalk that doesn't go anywhere. So with the other TIP project that's coming through, we have sidewalk that ends at Brook Street, and then there's about 1,000 linear feet until you get to 45 Milford Street, or the other TIP project site, with the sidewalk gap. And so this was highlighted through the Zoning Board of Appeals 40B hearings when I noticed that 45 Milford Street was showing sidewalks in front of their property. And I said, hey, what's that about? And so anyway, through a lot of conversation, a lot of emails sent out to DOT, I was able to secure at least getting sidewalks, that 1,000 feet of sidewalk connection to connect the two projects.
Sure.
It's not, there's no timeline as far as putting that in, but it's at least a project that is now noted on their pipeline, so it won't be unconnected forever. So I just wanted to
That's good.
note that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mentioned, data centers have just obviously been all the rage in the news. There've been lots of Boston Globe articles. There've been towns recently that have chosen to explicitly ban the use. I just wanted to highlight for folks that in your zoning bylaw, you have a prohibition clause that says anything not expressly allowed, I'll say, in town, whether it be by right or special permit, is prohibited. So you don't list data centers as a use that's available, therefore it is prohibited. So in case that is a concern and you're asked about it.
Okay.
Yeah, and those are, I mean, and other than the other, grant stuff that I'm working on, that I've talked about before, that you shall be aware of. I am currently working on a grant application with CMRPC to get a new master plan funded for the town. It's been 21 years since you have had a master plan. And the impetus for that was trying to figure out a transportation plan. So as all of you know, you have lots of plans and studies that have been done, especially within the last 5 years, touching on almost all of the facets of a master plan. Economic development, clearly. You have a parks plan, through your recreation plan, you have an affordable housing plan now. You have all these things that really make up most of a master plan. What you were lacking, from what I saw when we started looking into this, was anything relative to transportation. There are almost no transportation studies, and with the concerns of development in town, both anecdotally for speeding on connecting roads and desire to link up with MWRT to provide ADA services, it's something that really needs to be talked about in a more substantial way and memorialized in a transportation plan. So that was really my goal, to get that for the town. But it was explained to me that getting that, I'm not going to get funding for that. So we're just going for an entire new master plan, and we'll include that so we can get that too. So
Mike, is CMRPC taking over the master planning, or is it gonna? Because I know the last master plan was done by citizens of Upton. So it might be a little concerning to me that if CMRPC is taking over the whole planning for that.
I mean, it'll involve the citizens of Upton. It won't. CMRPC won't just tell you what they think your town goals should be. There'll be a robust public input in order to formulate the plan.
Oh, okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very happy that we're going to look at the master plan in its entirety.
And so with that, Gene, I'll turn it over to our friends from Mass Development here to talk about the programs they have available.
Great.
Right.
All right. Welcome, Kevin. Welcome, Ann, and glad to have you present tonight.
Okay, sure. I guess I'll lead off.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us out tonight. So again, just I guess a first important point of clarification that Ann and I always have to do, because we tag team on these calls pretty often. There's always a degree of confusion. So I actually work for the Mass Office of Business Development, which is the state's official economic development agency. So we're part of the Healy Driscoll administration. And we report to Secretary Eric Paley, who is the Secretary of Economic Development. Ann is with Mass Development, who is the state's finance authority. And so the names are very similar: Mass Office of Business Development / Mass Development, completely separate organizations. One is, quasi-governmental, which is Ann's agency, and then our office is actually part of state government. So I just want to make that clear. So we have, kind of a combined presentations that we've done for a number of economic development committees. And the intent here is you all are oftentimes like first touch for businesses that are looking to either expand their existing footprints or presence in your community, or are exploring, maybe developing a parcel or moving into a building that's in your community. And they may be, wondering what programs are available to help them in their growth and their expansion. So that's kind of what we like to talk about. So from a administration perspective, you all are probably familiar with the Community One Stop, which is the portal that was developed probably 3-4 years ago now, where communities can access. You submit a statement of intent, and then you can describe what you're trying to accomplish in your community. Oh, we want to do a master plan, or we want to do this, that, or the other thing. And then someone from EOED, our office, will recommend some programs that make the most sense to apply for you. And then, kind of walk you through that process. So what happened is, and I'm going to share my screen because I've got a presentation. I'll go through this very quickly, and then we'll open up for questions, and then turn over to Ann as well. But just give me 1 second. So just to give you a kind of background and context for all this, our office, Mass Office of Business Development. I'm sorry, Gene. Do you think you can mute? Actually, your mic keeps cutting in. Actually,
My mic. Okay.
Yeah. Great. So our office, the Mass Office of Business Development, is oftentimes where professional site selection firms will reach out. So if they have a client that they're working for that is looking for a location in any number of states, they'll often reach out to our office. And so we typically quarterback those responses that are provided to site selection firms to help them, help their clients choose Massachusetts. So we always include, for example, just a slide talking about, how committed the administration is to wanting to scale businesses. The other thing that's also important is, although incentives and other things are important, we always make sure that we include a snapshot of actually how special it is to live in Massachusetts. I'm not going to read these to you. I'll get these slides out to you, and you can distribute them both, among yourselves and make them available to the public if anybody asks for them. There's nothing secret here. It's actually stuff that we're all really proud of. So what happens is every 4 years, when a new administration takes office, the administration has to file an economic development plan. And when the Healy Driscoll administration took office, the Secretary of Economic Development at the time was Yvonne Howe. And, she said, there's really 2 ways we could do this. I could just kind of mail this in and just put together a plan, or I can get really serious about trying to find out what's important. And she did the latter. If any of you ever had the pleasure of meeting Yvonne, she was quite the go-getter. So she did a series of listening. She did a listening tour, I think, with 10 or 12 different, or maybe 15 even stops across the Commonwealth. Business leaders, companies, academics, organized labor, chambers, on and on and on, general public, and asked basically 2 questions. One is, what does the state do very well? And the second is, what do we not do so well? And the feedback from almost all those sessions was pretty consistent. And that was, the state has a bunch of really good programs, but it's very difficult to find them. Okay. So what she did was, drafted, first of all, that led to the drafting of the LEADS Act, which was the Economic Development Bill in November of 24. And it focused on 3 areas in particular. It was a very broad bill, but if you all recall, about 15 years ago, Governor Deval Patrick bet $2 billion on life sciences. And, it was a fledgling industry at the time. And now we literally are the global epicenter for life science companies, right? So the leads, the Mass Leads Act, reauthorizes financial support for the Life Sciences Center. There's a lot of programs there associated with to support life sciences companies, but also does a similar type investment in climate tech, because that is very likely going to be the next large growth segment. And then, as you all may have read, we were recognized as an applied AI hub federally. I think one of only a couple in the country. So there's a lot of money going into AI as well. So also coming out of those listening sessions, though, was the recognition that we need to better coordinate, excuse me, the integration of all the agencies for the state. So some of these are actual state offices, others are quasis like mass development. But at any given time, a company may need to integrate with or interact with one or more of these agencies. And the realization is that's a lot of relationships to manage, and it's very difficult. So what the model used to look like was this. A business, depending on what they were trying to accomplish, might interact with the Executive Office of Economic Development or Mass Growth Capital, which is part of Mass Development, or the Mass Life Sciences Center, or Mass Ventures if they were early stage, or on and on and on and on and on. Each of those relationships managed individually by the business. And so the recognition that that's very difficult led to the creation of the Business Front Door. Excuse me. 1 second. So this is an initiative that we undertook about 2.5 years ago to develop a portal. It was modeled after the Community One Stop that you all are probably already familiar with. The development team was also the team that worked on the Community One Stop. So there's a lot of similarities there. The main objective is it's a way to pull together multiple agencies and multiple programs into one kind of integrated portal. So the first thing we did was essentially aggregate a list of all the programs that are available at the state level. And honestly, if this is all we did as part of this initiative, this would have been a huge step forward. Because if you look at this chart in the right-hand column there, all those items, guidance and general advising, working capital, bonds and loans, each of those will explode down if you click on them, and we'll list multiple programs in those areas. So if all we did through this initiative was make it easier for people just to find programs, we think that would have been a huge step forward, right? But we did, excuse me, take it one step further than that. I'm not going to touch on any example programs. Ann will touch on more of those when she gets to her presentation. But the objective was to consolidate all these into what we're calling the Business Front Door. So if you go to mass.gov/BFD, if you've not been there yet, if you're a business owner, and we would really strongly recommend you, steer businesses to the Business Front Door. Anytime anybody reaches out, hey, do you know if there's any state programs available that can help what I'm trying to do here? Be honest, say, I'm not sure, but here's the URL where you can find out. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to register a business in the Business Front Door. It's very simple to do. And if you notice, the acronym for Business Front Door is BFD. All right. We think it's a big freaking deal. That was not accidental that we landed on that acronym because we do think it's a big deal as far as making it easier to do business in the Commonwealth. So a business, they go out there, they enter the Business Front Door. They can just explore resources on their own. Okay. But the real value in the program is once a business registers, they are assigned a navigator. A navigator is a real person. So for Central Mass, where you guys are, it would most likely would be me. There are some exceptions. If it's a life sciences company, they'll be assigned a navigator from the life sciences center. But for the most part, most businesses are going to be assigned a regional navigator. The next thing they can do is, as you can see on the screen, there are 2 tracks that they can pursue. One is just ask a question. Hey, I'm looking to open a cold storage facility. What permits do I need in Massachusetts in order to do so? Or how do I register my business in Massachusetts so that I'm a legal entity, or those types of things. So we have a team that for the year that we were building out the Business Front Door, they established relationships with almost every state agency. and put together an FAQ document. So either we have questions or answers, for questions that are frequently asked, or we've got a point of contact at an agency that we can get a response pretty quickly. So that's a huge value add right there. There's one place to go to get questions answered, as opposed to trying to have it track it down yourself. Second piece, and perhaps even more beneficial, is the Explore Our Resources tab. Excuse me, take another sip. And when a business clicks on that, it says, tell us what you need. They're presented with a series of prompts. What are you trying to accomplish? Oh, I have a manufacturing firm and I'm maxed out and I want to put a 40,000 square foot addition onto my building. I need to buy some equipment. So I'm looking to understand my options for equipment financing. And oh, by the way, that addition to the building is going to cost me $6 million. Are there any programs available that support that? And then once I do all this, I'm probably going to hire 20 people to run this new expanded assembly line that I've just built, right? So they give us a narrative as far as what they're trying to accomplish. The navigator then takes a look at that narrative, and we've got a laundry list, excuse me, of programs that and enough knowledge to be dangerous that we then match up the programs with the businesses, and then we drag those programs onto the business's dashboard. So everything's all integrated in one place to make it as easy as possible for them to navigate programs that might help them grow their business and create jobs in your community. Okay. So what's really interesting about it is, though, if I have a business that says I'm looking for equipment financing, okay, I would then add mass development as a resource to their dashboard and add Ann as a point of contact to their dashboard that they can then talk to Ann about financing programs relative to equipment financing or building financing or gap financing, or whatever the case may be. Before the business sees that, though, Ann gets a notification saying, hey, Kevin added you as a potential resource for this business who told us what they're trying to accomplish. She has visibility into what they're trying to accomplish. She can double check. Does it make sense for me to talk to them or not? Because what we don't want is to send businesses down a rabbit hole. We're just, list every possible program, have them explore everything, find nothing of value, and then just get frustrated, right? And so before anything shows up in a business's dashboard, there'll be two sets of eyes on it, the navigator's eyes and then the actual program manager's eyes, so that we're fairly confident that when we recommend something, it doesn't mean they're going to be awarded. A lot of these are competitive programs. They still have to go through the application process, and it's, there might be a 70% rejection rate on a lot of the programs because they're so oversubscribed. But at least we know most likely that they are programs that make sense for that business to apply to, because that was one of the point of feedback that we got through those listening tour events, was that sometimes businesses felt they were spinning their wheels doing a lot of applications with no success. So we really wanted to make sure that we're recommending things that make a lot of sense for the business. So they click on Explore Resources, it tells what they're trying to accomplish, and then eventually they'll get a dashboard that looks something like this. They'll have a bunch of cards on their dashboard that identify what the programs are. Oh, you're going to create a bunch of jobs. So do you want to apply for the Mass Office of Business Development, my office, the Economic Development Incentive Program? That is a tax credit program that provides tax credits for every job that you create, beyond 10. You have to create at least a minimum of 10 jobs. So they can say, yes, I'm interested in that. No, I'm not, or not sure. And it would just be parked on their dashboard. But what's interesting is where we're going with this. For those of you who have or had kids in college, remember the Common App? We had the one application that contained about 90% of the information that was required for all schools. And then every school might have put some additional information in relative to their school. That's ultimately, in future generations of the Business Front Door, where we're going. We want to have an integrated app where single data entry, so businesses don't have to enter their EIN and all the other information about their business, their address, and link stuff multiple times. And so as we build this, we're integrating more and more applications right into the app itself. A lot of them, because we're working, if you recall that chart I showed that lists all the state agencies, all of them are involved in the Business Front Door. We couldn't boil the ocean and integrate everything all at once. We wanted to get a successful product out there, have people start using it. And so for a lot of these, there will be a tile there that says, oh, apply for an equipment loan through mass development. They'll click on that and it'll take you to the mass development site for the equipment loan program, that type of thing. But at least it's all integrated in one place. You don't need, as a business, you don't need to remember who you talk to about what. You're not searching your inbox and trying to, find the point of contact for a particular program, that type of thing. It's all integrated into your dashboard. And then, so here's like an example of the application centers. So financing and loan programs, workforce training fund programs, on and on and on and on. So again, we're going to continue to build out the application center to make it more integrated and have businesses be able to apply for many, many different programs right through the portal itself. So the value here, you have a designated point of contact. So you have a ombudsman, a concierge who is your navigator. You get a tailored list of programs that most likely are applicable to your business. There's a pathway to ask questions and have them answered, pretty expeditiously. More easy to connect with any of the entities from within Team Massachusetts. You can also peruse all available business resources at your own leisure, and then really just trying to make it easier to do business. So that's a lot of information, fire hose version. But we think it's important. We think it's a game changer. What's really interesting, too, is we engage during the development process some of the national consultancies that help businesses select what communities that they're ultimately going to locate in, or what state they're going to locate in. And almost everyone has said this is actually class leading, that we are already ahead of the game now by what we've done here, made it easier than almost any other state as far as businesses are concerned. So that's where we're going with the program. And then I will turn it over to Ann to talk about some of the mass development specific programs that are applicable both. And it's particularly interesting because while the programs that I was mostly speaking to are all business facing programs, mass development, as you're probably aware, has programs that service both communities and businesses. So with that, Ann, take it away, and then we can open up for questions, collectively at the end here. So. Thanks.
Yeah, unless anybody has any burning questions for Kevin while I try to get the technology to work and present.
I don't have any questions, but thank you. That's really encouraging to hear.
Same.
And again, it's so easy to register. Oftentimes, like we've done this a few times for business groups, like a chamber or maybe an economic development committee will actually have like a business roundtable. Oftentimes, before I'm done with the presentation, my cell phone buzzes and I've seen someone's already registered for the business front door before I'm even done with the presentation. It literally is that easy to register your business. If it takes you more than 5 minutes, you're probably doing something wrong. So.
All right, can everybody
see?
see?
Kevin, that was a fantastic presentation. That's a heck of a product, and it certainly seems like it's a changer. Congratulations.
Great, thanks so much.
All right, can everybody see the slides that I just hopefully shared? Yep, okay, great. So yeah, as Kevin said, I'm from Mass Development, not to be confused with Mass Office of Business Development. We're a quasi-state agency, so we operate under our own budget, but we help support the economic development policy of the state. So I'm going to have a bunch of slides. I'm going to try to go through them quite quickly, but of course I can share these with Michael and he can share them with you all afterwards because there's a fair amount of detail in them. But I'll just give you an overview of mass development, the one-stop program, and then some of our lending resources. So just a quick overview of mass development. We are the development finance agency for the Commonwealth, but our role is really to use financing to help support the economic development goals of the state, which are really to increase jobs and increase housing units. So last year we were able to support 409 projects and mobilize over $4.5 billion of investment in the state, which resulted in more than 25,000 jobs either created or supported, and almost 3,000 units of housing in the state. So, that's how we measure our success. We operate as a nonprofit. We're not looking to make money off of the lending that we do. We're looking to support economic development. And this is just a quick overview to show that we work with a lot of different actors across the state. So we can work directly with businesses lending to them. We can work with developers, whether they're developers of commercial real estate or they're developers of industry, industrial buildings. We have programs that specifically are designed to support manufacturing in the state. And then, as Kevin mentioned, we do have a few programs that work directly with municipalities, a couple of grant programs. And then we are able to work with nonprofits. If you think of the SBA and some of their financing programs, they're not tailored for nonprofits. We have some programs that will specifically work with nonprofits. And then I always like to point out that we do not intend to replace the banks. All of our programs are designed to work with the existing banking industry and just help their financing go further. So most of our programs are designed to reduce risk for banks, but help support businesses and developers and things to continue their relationship with their existing bank and just set them up for the amount of financing to get a project finished and to improve that relationship with the bank so they can go directly to a bank in the future. So just a quick, this is just designed to show you that we have offices all throughout the state. I cover the central region. I'm the business development representative, and I work with team members who specifically work on lending, so our lending programs, and then investment banking, which is our bond programs. And then I have real estate team members who work on a lot of the more municipally focused programs. So we have different offices throughout the state that all have similar structures. So getting into some of our programs, the Community One Stop, you're probably all pretty familiar with this. We're right in the live application period right now. It'll close June 3rd, I believe, is the closing date. It opened in probably February. We have the expression of interest period and then the live application period. These are the 5 programs that Mass Development has under the Community One Stop, and I'll go into each one of them. The first is these are the real estate programs, which are specifically for municipalities and municipal agencies. The first one is the Technical Assistance Program. This program can do awards up to $75,000, and they are awards of services. And so this would mean you can apply for support this is really looking for things like site concept plans, help with RFPs or RFIs, and it's really designed to help municipalities get pieces of property that are not currently being used back into, ownership and like activated and generating tax revenue. So the classic example for a technical assistance program is you have an old school that is in pretty good shape, but is no longer being used by the municipality. What can it be used for? You can apply for a grant to have a grant of services to come in and help you do a feasibility study. Could this be turned into 30 units of housing? Could it be turned into, some type of office building? If you've already done some of that feasibility study, you know that you can fit housing in it. Maybe you want some help doing an RFP and making sure that you're putting the RFP together in a way that's going to get you the best bids. So this is a really useful tool for municipalities trying to figure out what to do with some of that excess property or buildings that you have. The next program is the Site Readiness Program. This is for slightly larger sites that are ready for development, so they need to be greater than 50,000 square feet. Again, this is only available to municipalities and municipal authorities, and it can be used for development of site concept plans and also demolition. This is pretty popular for if you have, say, an old mill and it's been sitting vacant for a really long time. It's been turned over to the municipality and maybe the roof is caving in and no developer really wants to touch it. They don't want to do anything with the current building, but they also don't want, you're unlikely to get a good bid with a crumbling building on site. Municipalities can apply for the Site Readiness Program to demo the building and clear the site and make it more attractive to developers. So that's the Site Readiness Program. The Underutilized Properties Program, this is a program that's open to both the municipalities and the private sector. The applicant just has to be the owner of the building. And this is specifically for buildings that have been sitting vacant and unused. They need to be at least 75% vacant for at least the past year. And you can apply for either pre-development or development. So pre-development would be just doing assessments, having architects or engineers look at it. development would be for actual construction, things like fixing the roof, fixing the windows, making it ADA compliant. But the idea would be, again, this is a cost reimbursable grant, so not a grant of services. This is a grant reimbursing costs for the improvements. But again, trying to get some of those vacant buildings, if you have, one or two on Main Street that have just been sitting vacant for a really long time because the roof needs repairs, then this is a great program for helping to cover some of those costs to get them back up to usable condition. And then the next program is the Brownfields Fund. And I will caution that there are two Brownfields programs listed on our website. One is a loan that is available to the private sector that's not currently funded. So this is the only Brownfields program that's currently available, and it's just open to municipalities, and it's up to $100,000 for site assessment or $400,000 for site remediation, and it's only for contamination in the ground, so not in the building. So if you have a piece of land that is contaminated and needs to be cleaned up, this is a great grant program to apply to try and get that cleaned up and back and ready for use. So that's really the programs that we have on the One Stop, and those are only open during the One Stop period. The rest of these programs don't have well, some of them do have an annual cycle, but I'll highlight those. Our lending programs are designed to cover everything from a small micro business all the way up to your large established business, what we think of as large, but what the federal government probably still considers a small business, which is usually up to around 200 employees and somewhere, can be as high as $40 million in annual revenue. But I just highlight that because previously Mass Development used to just do asset-backed financing, so the higher end projects, and there used to be Mass Growth Capital as a separate entity that did the smaller kind of Main Street, sole proprietor, small and micro business lending. We're now one organization, so we can cover everything from your small Main Street business looking for $50,000 in working capital all the way up to your manufacturer looking to build a brand new building needing $10 million in lending. So our programs, we have a whole bunch of programs, but just generally high level, the real estate loans and participation can go up to $10 million. So that's, a manufacturer looking to buy a new building, expand on their current building, needing some, even if it's a $20 million investment, we may be able to participate up to $10 million. We can do equipment loans up to $3 million, loan guarantees up to $4 million. We do have a special program for emerging technology businesses. So these are your tech businesses that are looking to get equity investors, have done a Series A, Series B, and then don't want to give up any more equity and are looking for some bridging debt financing. We have a special program designed for those. And then we also have the State Small Business Credit Initiative, which I'll talk about on the next slide. This program we highlight because all those other programs I talked about, those are perennially available. This program, the State Small Business Credit Initiative, or SSBCI, is actually a federally funded program. So it's not always available. It's not out of our general fund. It does also is subject to the federal regulation that it is only available for U.S. citizens and naturalized citizens. So all of our other programs are available to people who have some type of visa status, but this one in particular is not. And the key behind this program is it is federal funding. It's designed to serve communities who are socially and economically disadvantaged, but we have exceeded the quota for that. So it is pretty generally open. It follows a lot of the same general rules. It can be used for real estate acquisition and construction up to $10 million, equipment loans up to $3 million, and working capital up to $2 million. The key is that this vehicle requires bank participation, so at least 50% of the financing needs to come from a bank, and then our programs can either participate alongside or offer a guarantee to get up to 100% or even slightly above 100% of loan-to-value ratio. So it's a really great way for businesses to finance major investments in their growth. And there is an ability, again, if the borrower is part of a a socially or economically disadvantaged group, and that can be based on the geography, the location of the business, their ethnic background, et cetera, that there is some ability to lower the interest rate on the SSBCI portion of the loan to just make it more accessible and ensure debt service coverage ratio. So it's a very flexible program. It's a great program to have available. And we have it available right now. And the way it works is the government gives out tranches of money. And then once we've lent out that full tranche, we would be eligible for another tranche. So we should have it for at least another couple of years. The next program, I did want to talk about, we have one grant program for-profit businesses. It is the Biz Empower program. The information on here comes from the last round. Every time they do a new round of this grant program, the criteria tends to change a little bit. So I'll say it's under review right now. We expect the next round to open in the fall, but some of these criteria might change. In the past, it was for small businesses up to 20 employees and 2.5 million in annual revenue, and they needed to have a brick and mortar location, and the grants could only be used for physical assets or physical improvements. So if you had a small bakery that really wanted to buy a new refrigerator or a new oven or something, they could apply for this grant. And it went up to $50,000 and did require I believe, 20% match from the business. So if they applied for the full $50,000, they'd need to show a $10,000 match that they were able to contribute towards it. It's a highly competitive program. There are a ton of businesses that go after it every year, but it can also be a great way to help a small Main Street business make an investment in their facility. And then working capital loans, these really are targeting those smaller Main Street type businesses. We can do small business loans or micro loans up to $100,000. Those are the easiest to access. Those are kind of the entry level loans. The criteria really that you just need to be for profit, Massachusetts headquartered, operational for at least 12 months. They do want to see that you're cash flow positive so that you'd be able to repay the loan. They typically want to see at least 3 months of, positive cash flow. And then also they do look at credit score, a minimum credit score of, I believe, 575 for those micro loans. But they're very accessible. We try to encourage businesses, before you go and put a bunch of stuff on your credit card at a really high interest rate, try to get a micro loan because it will just set them up for more success. And then the small business working capital loans can go up to $2 million. They're at a fixed interest rate of 10%, but they can be used, again, for any working capital, whether that's inventory, salaries, whatever a business needs to grow. And then tax-exempt bond financing. This is a program that Mass Development has the authority to issue tax-exempt bonds, and these are primarily for nonprofits. And then we do have a small amount that's set aside for manufacturers every year. So the cap on manufacturers, I believe this year was about 25 million, which seems like a lot, but not really when you think about all the manufacturers in the state that are trying to make investments in, either their new equipment or new facilities. And the way a tax-exempt bond works is that for both the borrower and the lender, it feels just like a normal loan, but it's just that Mass Development has the authority to issue these tax-exempt bonds. That's usually through a private placement with the bank that the business works with already. So there's a manufacturer up in Air that is doing this right now with their bank. We'll issue the bonds. Their bank will buy the bonds. The business pays the bank back. The bank does not have to pay corporate taxes on the interest income. And so they save that 21% and they pass that savings on to the borrower by lowering the interest rate. And the savings is usually between 100 and 150 basis points. So that's, instead of paying a 7% interest rate on their debt, they're paying like a 6 or a 5.5. So it's a great opportunity for major investments for manufacturers, and it's also available for nonprofits. The one thing I'll say is that it really only makes sense because there are some fees involved if the borrower is borrowing over $1 million. So a lot of small nonprofits would love to take advantage of it, but it really only makes sense if they're making much larger investments. And then I think the last program I'll highlight is our PACE, which is Property Assessed Clean Energy. And this does require the municipality to opt in. And I forgot to check before I hopped on if Upton had decided to participate in this program, but it does allow businesses that are looking to make investments in clean energy. So the classic example is putting a bunch of solar panels on the roof. They can then finance that through a betterment assessment on their property, and then they pay that back over time through their taxes, which means it does not sit on their balance sheet. So the debt doesn't show on their balance sheet. If they sell the building, the betterment assessment, stays with the building. So the company no longer has to pay it back. But it's a great opportunity for them to make a clean energy investment that is kind of off the books for them.
So Ann, I just checked. So Upton has
Yeah.
not yet opted in. So something for you all to bring to your select board. It's actually a pretty easy process to opt into the program. The reason the community has to opt in, though, there is a little bit of a lift. You have to put a betterment fee and track that, and then collect additional tax liability from the property owner, and then submit those payments to Mass Development. So there is a little bit of work, not a lot of work, but a little bit of work
Yeah.
by the community, which is why they have to opt in.
Mm-hmm. But it's a great way for, people who are trying to make improvements. And it can also be, it's not just for, manufacturers and industry, it can also be used for like housing. So it can help with financing the improvement to any type of building in the community. So it's a great flexible program to have available. And I have a colleague who's an expert in it. He can walk you through the whole process, and I'm happy to put you in touch with him. So yeah, that is a fire hose of information of all the various programs that we have. I am more than happy to answer any questions that you have, but I'll also be sure to share these slides so that you have all the information available.
This is great. There's so much information in here. I try to make notes on the side as we're going. I appreciate that you're going to send this too. Because there's just even one small business I'm thinking of too in town that it's a daycare that opened up in the fall, and I know they want to have like some sort of play structure, and it seems like there's a few different things like they could do to fund that possibly, whether it be a loan or a grant. So I'm excited because even tomorrow I can just talk to them a little bit about this and share this with them too, and that which ties back to the first presentation, how that's a fantastic resource for them as well.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to share, I'll just share my screen real quickly. So we have a one pager that kind of outlines the business front door with a QR code that businesses can register. So I will send you this PDF, and you can print it front and back, and then leave copies at the town clerk's office or the planning office, wherever you want. And it's just a real easy way to just hand this to a business and say, hey, listen, you want to explore state programs, hit this QR code, register your business, and then you'll be assigned a navigator. So I'll forward this along with my presentation, and then Michael can pass it on to y'all.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is an awful lot of information to take in, and with the various different programs. And it seems like you've made a lot of advances in terms of ease of use over the last few years. Mass Development has been long-term involved in a bunch of different projects in this area, and I'm sure people would be interested in taking advantage of some of this stuff. And the town may be as well on some of the properties. So thank you for the presentation. I don't know, does anybody have any questions for Ann?
I don't quite understand the PACE program. I know you said there's someone that can explain it more, but can you kind of give an overview of what that one was again?
And I do not know all the details, but basically the idea is if you have a building and you want to make improvement, put solar panels on the roof. And I will say they may change some of these criteria. They've been reviewing the program, but the idea was that you had to come in and show, okay, I'm going to put solar panels on the roof. The investment that I'm going to make is actually going to lead to a cost savings, right? So by having solar panels and fixing the windows so they're not leaking and doing it, they basically would have to do an assessment to show that the cost savings from the energy improvements would exceed the total cost of the investment, right? And so the idea is it will pay for itself. So once they've made that assessment, there is a third-party lender who is actually the one lending the funds to make it, so that they lend the funds, so all the improvements happen up front, right? All the solar panels get put on, the energy efficient windows get put in, and then the town, because they've opted in, can do a betterment assessment. Okay, this property is now worth more. The taxes would go up by X. Those taxes over however many, it's like 20 years, up to 20 years, would be paid back through the taxes, through their tax payment every year. But whatever portion of that is determined by the financing actually goes to that original lender. So the building
so that's how
owner
they
pays
fund
their
doing that.
taxes, and that little betterment assessment, the addition on their taxes actually goes from the municipality back to the lender and pays off the loan. But that way it's just showing up in their tax payments. It's not showing up as debt on their balance sheet. So some businesses like that, because then it looks like they have less debt, even though they are still has that cost on their balance, you know. So some businesses really like it because it doesn't show up as debt, but they're still able to make that major investment. The 20 years spreads it out for a really long time, makes it much more feasible to make that investment up front. Municipalities tend to like it because it allows improvements in the buildings in their community that are energy efficient and hopefully, you know, make the buildings last longer and lead to more investment in the community. So,
And the thing I would add too is, so say a company's gonna make, I'm picking a round number because it's easy, $1 million worth of clean energy improvements between solar panels and high efficiency heat exchangers or whatever it's going to be, right, to their building. So that would be spread out over 20 years. So they essentially would see $50K per year in increased tax liability for that property, but they're not going to have to come up with $1 million on the front end. So that's what's in it for the business. And the beauty of it is, because it's a betterment that is tied to the property, if that business leaves, moves, goes out of business or whatever, whoever owns that building is still responsible for making those payments. So it's very low risk for the community. And again, the only real overhead is just kind of tracking and collecting the payments and passing it on to mass development.
That explained it. Thank you. I appreciate going in depth like that. That makes a lot more sense. It's really intriguing.
Could it, excuse me, could a developer use this at the front end of the process? So that if they're building a brand new building, they go to PACE, they get the quote unquote improvements applied, and then they turn around and they get rid of the building.
I think I would have to double check. I think it has to be for existing buildings. Kevin, I don't know if you've seen examples where it's used on
that changed. I believe that changed when the program was first introduced. It was only for retrofitting existing buildings to make them more efficient. Pretty sure it could be used on the front end of buildings.
Front end buildings, yeah, as part of the actual development capital stack. Yeah,
that is interesting because it's harder to prove. It's a savings, I guess, it's compared to using like fossil.
And that is one of the things that I've heard, is that they might be getting rid of that, like proving that you're saving money. It's just the value of the investment. So yeah, this gets into like the very nitty gritty details of how PACE works, which I have a colleague who can like thoroughly go through all of the details and also the process for getting it approved. But
one perspective I'll share from the economic development side of things is, as a municipality, you have like very few levers you can pull to make your community more attractive than the neighboring community or a community across the border in Rhode Island or Connecticut or something like that. So obviously you can offer TIFs whenever a company's making an investment to a property and give them some release on the real estate taxes. This is another tool that says, listen, if clean energy improvements to your facilities are important, this is a great place to do that. So it is another tool that you'd have in your toolbox to make your community more attractive to businesses. I'll just leave that just as a thought as well.
Yeah, and we've seen businesses. Kevin and I are talking to a business right now that is not as interested in our other financing programs because they do not want to have debt on their balance sheet, but they are interested in PACE, and luckily they're in a community where they have access to it. So.
That's expensive right now for many businesses. Interest rates are very favorable.
Yeah, and that's why the tax exempt bonds are so popular too.
Right.
But yeah. All right. Well, yeah. And then if you have any, in terms of the municipal programs through the One Stop, also we're in the active application period. But if at any time you want to talk about specific properties, my colleague from the real estate team, who Michael has met, Amanda, she is more than happy to come and do a site visit. We'll often go to municipalities, visit an old school, an old mill, walk through, help the municipality think about which program would make the most sense to apply to. Can't do that during the active application period, but certainly starting again after the application period closes. That can be a helpful way to make sure that you're thinking about which program will best fit the community needs.
Great. Well, thank you.
I believe you said
Any
it
other
wasn't a
questions for
heavy
any?
lift to opt in, right? To that PACE program?
I'm sorry, what was the
Sorry.
question?
I said, I believe you said it really wasn't a heavy lift to get the
Yeah.
community.
It's just a select board vote. It doesn't even have to go to town meeting.
Yeah.
So just a select board can make that vote.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. I mean, it's a ton of information, but really, really helpful. And so I'll collect that the things you're going to send to me, and I'll send it around, and we'll take it from there. And I'm sure we have some stuff to talk about in some future EDC meetings.
Yeah, and this is our first communication or conversation, not meant to be the last. So reach out anytime. I mean, that's what we're here for.
Yep.
Yeah, great. All right. Thanks so much.
Great,
Yep.
thanks.
All right.
All right, have a good evening.
night.
Thanks.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
everyone.
That's great. I definitely spared a lot of ideas and thoughts. It's such a great tool to help the community and help all these businesses to like be able to point them to a resource. I'm sure this makes your life a lot easier too, Michael, like having all these things like streamlined together too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it helps just to point them somewhere.
Yeah.
That's an immense lift.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
the concern-
coordinating that. I imagine you reach out to them. I don't know how that happened, but
I think they reached out to me, and so then I scheduled a call. It was like when Kristen's like first week here, so we jumped on a call a while ago now, and I completely forgot about it until today. So
They're very anxious to have the programs be used. You know, the problem that they have is because they're not on the radar in many places or many people or businesses, they don't get applied for as often as the programs would like, and then it looks like ineffective government, so they have a vested interest in seeing people apply.
yeah. And it makes sense to reach out to the different economic committees in towns because that's like the liaison to the businesses.
Right, exactly. It's nice, the issue that a lot of people will have is that, it's still recourse debt in many cases, and the difference between going to your bank and going through a state agency sometimes is difficult to justify. Because there are layers of, as you would expect, layers of bureaucracy that they wouldn't necessarily be involved in a private lending situation.
Yeah. I'm curious what the loan rates are. I wasn't gonna like go in and be like, what are they typically for each one? But it wasn't.
They're not as competitive. The simple answer is they're not as competitive as you would think they would be.
Like they're not more competitive than a bank.
They're not that much more competitive than a bank. There are certain of the programs like the brownfield programs, like the taxing, the tax financing, the bond financing that are pretty attractive. But the other ones are competitive, and just that, competitive.
Yeah, like the SSBCI, that federal one. I was surprised that one was more favorable. That you would think Massachusetts had like the more favorable
Well,
program.
I think the issue, I
disadvantage.
think the benefit you have with them is they'll go through a bunch of different banks. That they work with, where you may be limited to your own local resources, your likelihood of securing the debt may be better, and going through mass development or, than in going, conventional.
Yeah.
Just because they'll shop it more, So.
Yeah.
I think certainly having the information available. It's very hard for me when they're offering so much so fast, when it's like a shotgun approach, to register any single element as being one that's is particularly compelling. I mean, it kept on flashing through my head, the Holy Angels and some of the things we were talking about, and obvious.
It was the underutilized properties program.
Right.
That was one that could work for Holy
Exactly.
Angels. I just took like feverish notes because it's like I'm not gonna be able to remember this after if I don't.
Well, that's why it'd be nice to have the slides and be able to look at it and think, methodically about what might be applicable.
Yeah, because the Holy Angels one, it's like it sounded like, or the one that would work was $50,000 to up to $1 million reimbursed after.
Mm-hmm.
And you obviously need to. So that I don't know. Michael probably already knew about this anyway. I feel like you're always like up to date on all the different grants and things that are out there. But that one just was interesting.
It's hard to keep track of all of them. No, it's helpful to have these resources. Help to have. I mean, it's great that they reached out because oftentimes it's just easy to forget. It's easy to forget that mass development exists a lot of times. If you're not focused, if you just focus on planning efforts, the way that I am, because of what I do typically, and not to be completely focused on the specific development end on it, because usually you need to be shovel ready before getting development grants, and we're just usually a long way out from that. You know what I mean? So it's helpful to touch base with these things, be reminded of new programs and new innovative ways to get funding that they are all working on, because they change these programs, like he was saying, every 4 years, right? When they, so.
Yeah. Does that radically change with each administration, or are they just kind of adapt things?
They do. They want to put their own stamp on it. Like, everybody wants to get credit for something. I mean, just look at the Office of Community Development. I mean, they change names and the acronym changes just on a fairly regular basis. So that's a new stamp each administration and a new initiative or focus. But it is great to have the resources. It is great to see, I mean, just at the high level, that Massachusetts is #1 in so many things, even though sometimes it doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, I'm like, what's Wallet Hub? I've never heard of Wallet Hub before. That was one that was like the reference point for a few of them. I'm going to Google that later.
Right. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, let's move on to the rest of the agenda. And so we're on to the EDC projects for 2024. So the infrastructure analysis, I don't know if any of you had a chance to look through it, in terms of capacities or questions on, what we have for infrastructure and, whether we're at our limits on anything or, and one of the things that I was hopeful that we get out of it is identifying weak spots. I'm sure from the town's perspective, we want to know that too. At a higher level than the EDC, are we, going to be pressing up against the limits of our sewer capacity, our water capacity, or the electric infrastructure, gas infrastructure? So there was a lot of information in there. And I think it's worth taking the time to read.
I didn't look at it from that lens of like where the problem's gonna.
Yeah, I was disappointed that I didn't see a call out in the executive summary, like of here's where you're gonna have some issues.
I can reach. I mean, they just sent me a bill for all the work that they've done already, so it's like, so I can touch back with them on that, because I don't think they charged me the full amount of what we were contracted for. So I might be able to get them to do some additional work on it if we want to try and get that.
Well, so what I'd really like to see is an executive summary of where they see the issues.
Yeah.
It's fine to go ahead and do the analysis, but stating the facts without knowing the context is just facts with no ability to imply what they mean or deduce what they mean. So what I'd really like to know is, how much more capacity do we have in the sewer system, in number of units of homes or in large commercial, commercial projects. The same thing on water capacity, whether we have any choke points. And also, is it healthy to have limits to growth in some ways, that are imposed by sewer capacity or water capacity.
Came up last night at the West Upton Visioning presentation there was a question about pretty much that. It was like, oh, what'd she say? She said her question was, with all this potential proposed development in that plan, right? What can we even provide for it, was the question in essence. And the answer to that is yes, no, maybe. But we can issue building permits, right? Somebody applies for something and it's a by right use. We can issue a building permit through my office. But if we don't have the sewer and water capacity, DPW is not going to give them hookups, and they're not going to apply for a building permit if they don't think they can get those hookups, right? That would be insane. So, but so DPW, through their consultants, Ty and Bond, typically as the engineering firm, they're always looking at those things, especially if there's a new development that's going to not exceed demand necessarily, but create a new high demand on something. And we know ahead of time whether or not we're going to need a new pump station or something like that in order to provide for it. Now, I think those are probably some things that can be addressed in that executive summary, like you're saying, Gene. Well, anyway. So, but then the other stuff,
and that would give us some basis to have meaningful conversations, and also to have feedback, be provided by any of the committees, too. I mean, whether it's zoning or planning or whatever. Go ahead, Lori.
So I feel like there was a interim one that had some of the changes that we asked for that aren't in this final one. So some things weren't included in either, but I felt like we had asked about the fact that they talk about 2 water sources, and this one's talking about 2 again. And I feel like I saw a report in the meantime that talked about all 3. I think we asked them to do a better map that showed them all. I don't know if we've seen that yet. We still don't see it in this one. And we also asked them if they would do a mapping out of the telecom infrastructure, and there's no map about it, and there's no real explanation about it. So I don't feel like it's done. I'm glad to know that there may be some money left that isn't spent, because I don't think it's as good as it needs to be, as complete as it needs to be. They talk about, I think it was electrical and having good to excellent at the time of this report, but all the information that they gave us was from 2011. So I don't know. I think they need to do a little more work on it.
Yeah.
And I do feel like there was reports in the middle. I have to look back through the things you sent us, Michael, to see if the last one had more information that's no longer there. And I think they had better maps, and then they switched them out for ones that aren't as good now. So I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay,
I'll have to double check that I sent you the most recent based on your comments. But either way.
No, I know. Yeah.
I also did. The funds were set to expire at the end of June. Thankfully, I got an extension on everything, and thankfully they offered the extension because May got blown wide open for me. I don't know if you've looked at the planning board agenda at all recently, but we are very busy. So we got another 6 months on these funds to help get these things right.
Anything in particular, just since you mentioned that and moving on, anything in particular on the radar on the planning board that's keeping you very busy, that's large?
Large developments. No, I mean, it's smaller developments. I mean, there's the 17 lots on East Street that has just been on the agenda for the last year. The the issue with that one that's just taking up time is addressing. Well, everything's just contentious. Like every filing is contentious, and we have neighborhoods coming out in strong opposition to them, and so obviously, I mean, that just generates work. Yeah, I'm not begrudging anybody for
No,
taking
yeah,
an
right,
opinion, but you know, so we got 4 lots on South Street that have been trying to go in for the last year. Where there's huge neighborhood outcry for that small subdivision. There's East Street Estates with Rockwood Meadows across the street, and they are very involved and very concerned about anything with regards to the development on East Street Estates. We also received another small filing for off of Walnut Street, which will immediately connect, not physically through a road, but immediately adjoins East Street Estates, and that's only another 4 lots. There is a proposed, I forget how many units on Glen Ave. So there was a lot of discussion, a lot of emails and phone calls coming in around a month ago about, you know, there were surveyors out on this property, and so what are they doing there? And the answer was they were evaluating it for development, and now we have a filing for a townhouse development on Glen Ave. And so that, and I only mention that just because that doesn't always happen, you know. So I will get phone calls about why is this surveyor over on this property? What are they doing? Digging test pits, and then nothing ever comes of it. But this time it happened. And then Mechanic Street, there is, again, I'm forgetting how many units. I want to say less than 20 units. It was like 14 or 16 senior housing units that are proposed on Mechanic Street that are before planning board right now. And I know I'm leaving some out, so that's just a few.
And it's pretty busy.
Yeah, it's pretty
a lot
busy.
of
And then
feedback
Wow.
back and forth with engineers and surveyors.
Wow, wow.
And then the
And
same thing
peer
with
review.
Mechanic Street. Obviously, those neighbors are not thrilled with that as well. So it's generating a lot of work.
Is it affordable senior housing, or is it like the senior housing they're building now that it's like high-end senior housing, like not more of what we need per se?
Right.
You know, it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be what's the one like Bootstrap Lane or
Yeah.
up there. Yeah, it's not going to be that.
Okay.
They're going to be smaller units than that. So high end, I'm not so sure, but it's not going to be super affordable. I mean, they'll be required to provide some affordable units as a result of your inclusionary zoning bylaw. So they'll have to give us 2 or 3 units of affordability within that, but it's not going to be mostly affordable, right? And then zoning board is just busy just with, you know, zoning board stuff. You know, it's people are putting in pools and don't want to and want them in the side yard setback. So, you know, it's just a lot of minor things like that. And I mentioned the 45 Milford Street 40B, as well as the ongoing construction with 47 Main Street, which is, you know, digging, and they accidentally took down some trees that they shouldn't have. So we had to issue them a notice of violation and try to get trees planted and replaced because of what they took down. And so there's just a lot of stuff like that going on that's eating up a lot of time.
Yeah.
Mike, is the development on East Street, have they got their access into there over the wetland been approved?
No, nothing's been approved.
Nothing's been approved. Okay, because I heard them talking about crosswalks and sidewalks, so I thought, well, at least the access has been approved. That's not even been approved. So I just heard that a house on South Street just sold, of these 4 houses that are in front of the solar farm. The house sold for $1.8 million. And I think the ones on East Street, if they ever get approved, well, Rockwood Meadows now are $1 million each. So I'm guessing the big houses across the street are going to be in the 1.8 type $2 million range. It's a little crazy.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, I know that you're going to be having an affordable housing meeting, that sort of thing. I'm just wondering if anyone's ever done a needs assessment about what kind of housing is needed. Developers come and they say, I want to build this, and they build big houses because that's when they make the most money, but nobody looks into what kind of housing is needed.
Well, we
Yeah.
know we do have that. It's in the affordable housing production
Plan.
plan.
Right.
But I mean, the answer is simple: is that we need affordable housing, and we don't just need the um, the state's version of affordable housing, right? That goes on the SHI list. You need 1960s style smaller homes that are
Yeah.
built, like you were just saying. But that is not the rate of return is not great on those, so developers typically do not build them. So that's where we're at as an economy right now.
Honestly, they're having trouble making the numbers work even on large houses now. That's why they're so expensive. I mean, the cost of construction are absolutely through the roof, and with mortgage rates where they are, it's just really, really a very difficult housing market for
Yeah.
affordables and for, to be honest, for market rates.
Well, for a long time, people weren't building because the money was so expensive to borrow. And now
Mhm.
clearly that's not so much of an issue.
And that's
For them.
and we have so many filings for right now. This question came into my head because I was like, because Gene, I was thinking all of that as I was seeing all these filings. Like, did something change that I missed that all of a sudden we feel comfortable submitting these applications right now? So I
think a lot of
see that
people are
anything
just
changed.
they're just setting themselves up for when the market turns. And there's been a lot
Yeah.
of cash made in the last few years, when the market was booming. And the money has to go someplace and be reinvested in many cases with these companies, to keep the wheels going. But I know there's a lot of projects that don't have foundations in the ground, are kind of on hold. They're getting their permits in place and doing things like that, but the next stage is very difficult for a lot of for projects that were viable 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so back to the infrastructure thing. I'll reach out to Stantec and organize a phone call with them to try and get some of these things back into a plan. And so like I said, fortunately, I have until the end of the calendar year to make that now. So
Right.
otherwise, wasn't getting done otherwise. So.
Okay. So moving on, let's go on to the West Upton Center Vision earmarks update. And last night was a presentation of the West Upton Vision, correct?
And that was
what was attendance like?
not great.
Okay.
Maybe about 7 people were there. Unfortunately, but it was recorded, so I don't know if that's up on the town's YouTube yet or not, but it was recorded for people to see. Obviously, the draft was distributed. I didn't know if you all got that draft a week or so when they sent it to everybody or not, but I did send that around again. It is up on your webpage, so everybody can take a look at it. I talked to the consultant today about a few questions. I told them to hold off making any changes as a result of last night, only until they get in front of the select board on June 16th with you all to see if to give the select board a chance to see if they want to make any comments. I know typically they would defer to this committee because you're the steering committee for it anyway, but just in case they would like to make comments or see any changes, they don't have to go back to it twice, and they can make all those changes for the final draft.
So the 16th is the presentation to the select board?
Yes.
At what time? Is it on the agenda?
It's not on the agenda yet, but I have, I'm in contact with the town manager's office. That should be, it's not on a posted agenda, but it should be on their draft agenda.
Okay.
So they start at 6 o'clock, that the select board. So I don't know when that'll be on for.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Okay. And so at least 2 of us will make ourselves available for that presentation. Has anybody been consistently at the meetings? I mean, I really haven't.
Oh, I just
Lori
want to
has.
ask, is
Lori has.
Dodson, are they going to present that whole thing to the select board like presented to us last night?
No, it'll be abbreviated. It's not going to be a hour presentation.
Okay.
It'll, I'm sure, well, I'll try to get them to cut it down to maybe 20 and really hit the highlights, but it'll be, it's the draft's already available. I know I've already sent it to Brett because he was asking for it. So the select board members will have access to it before, so they'll have a chance to look at it and come in with questions if they have any, as well as everybody else who's interested, right? So, but no, I wouldn't want to eat up the select board's time with that.
Okay. Okay, great. Then moving on, let's go into the parking lot plans. I looked at what Alan had sent. Those are still at conceptual level, not at final. And he's
Yeah.
made no other changes since the original version.
There's
Okay.
not, and like I was saying, with how busy I've been, I haven't had a chance to come back to him. So my next task is to just speak with or meet with Mark Allen to discuss next steps on that. But now's a good opportunity. Again, I think I sent you the same thing, honestly, at our last
Mhm.
meeting. Now's just a good opportunity to, if you have any requests or suggestions as a part of that, to try and get that into the conceptual plan, because he'll finish out that that plan to get to a higher level of detail, and then we'll submit to planning board for site plan review, so we can have
Mhm.
an approved plan. Which would put
Well,
us
the only
into.
thing I think on the conceptual, where he is on concept, he doesn't have really a surface water management plan
Mhm.
on there. That really, the basic calculation should be easy for him to run. He should be able to calculate that and determine what he needs for basins, and
Mhm.
we're talking about non-sunk basins, they're all above ground, infiltration or, type things. So that,
Mhm.
a green infrastructure. So
Yeah.
that would be good to, have an idea of scale, because it's awfully hard to show your parking spaces in impermeable, and unless he's planning for permeable pavement, he's got to do his surface water calculations to determine how large an area he needs for infiltration.
That's a good point. I think I mentioned permeable pavement to him as a way to address this, because my anticipation is that the town will not be paying for this parking lot to be constructed outright. We'll be seeking grants for it, and it'd be good for us to go for those higher ticket items if we're going to look for a grant for it, right? So,
Right.
yeah, thanks for the reminder on that.
Yeah, like I said, because it's it's awfully hard to say I got that many spaces if suddenly, when he does the calculations, it's not going to support it.
Mhm.
Mhm. So was there somewhere in the plan that added more spaces to the parking lot that exists now?
It didn't add more. I think what he got was more spaces than were originally projected in the conceptual plan that the previous consultant did. I think he got 2 more spaces. Is that right, Michael? Than
I'll have to
what we
double
had
check.
thought?
I'm not sure.
I think it was something like 2 more spaces. It's still, honestly, what he's presented is probably less spaces that exist there now, but it's a better use
Yeah.
of the property and more responsible use of the property.
Yeah.
It-
You always
the
lose
second
spaces
scenario.
by just delineating them, right? So.
Yeah.
Do we know how many spaces are in the existing parking lot right now? Is that like 10?
No, I mean,
No, there's like 40 or 50. It's
yeah,
No,
fluctuating.
because it's a dirt lot, right? So there's no lines showing how many spaces. So as a free for all, yeah, Gene's right, probably like 40. But as soon as you introduce delineating lines, yeah, you're gonna cut the amount of spaces down by a lot.
Do
I
we
think
know how
he's-
much the total will be with the existing parking lot and adding the new BSC parking lot?
What was the
Because I
question?
think the BSC had like 16.
What
I
was
think
the question?
I think we're at 29 or 32. It's either 29 or 32 or
Combined with
Oh, okay.
the one next door, or
combined, I think, with the one next door.
yeah, that sounds
Okay.
right.
This one has 20, but the one that's there has what, about 13, 14? Somewhere I remember one design that had 39 altogether, I thought.
That was
So
using the area in back of the arcade building.
Okay, and
Yeah.
which we don't own. So we can't put anything there till we own that, if we
Yeah.
ever.
Or we have a park, or we have an agreement,
Right.
which was the
Right, right,
last
right.
time we talked to the select board, we were talking about pursuing some sort of agreement.
An agreement, right.
Because they need the parking too, and they really don't have it right now.
Especially when they start doing the tip project and they lose all the parking in front.
That's a good point.
Any questions or other comments about the parking design? There's really no action to take on that. Michael, you're just going to be talking with Mark. I think, like I said, I'd like to have the, at least some sort of conceptual idea, calculation basis on what we need for detention or infiltration. And how we, that obviously will incorporate that into a landscape design later, but, for now, he's got enough information to determine, based upon if he was to use impermeable versus permeable, what he needs for the infiltration or detention. Okay. I guess let's go on to other topics, not reasonably anticipated. One of the topics I want to introduce is I've been serving as chair for a long time, and my energy level is has waned somewhat as I'm transitioning, a lot of different living circumstances. So just want you guys to consider, rotating the chair out and giving someone else younger or more energetic than myself a chance to organize and move us forward. So we can talk about that at the next meeting, but I'd really like to, have you consider it. So.
You can absolutely put election of officers on the next agenda.
Okay, great. Thanks. Good.
There's like a crazy wind swell all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Out the window, it's like a little microburst.
We need some rain, more rain.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, anything else? We're going to set the next meeting date. I don't think, so on the next meeting date, we don't have a lot that's coming up. We have some feedback we need from consultants. We're going to have the meeting with the select board, and that's going to be in between our meetings. So I can certainly put it on my calendar to go on that Tuesday night. And, somebody else that has been consistently at the meetings should come with me, or two other people can go, since I haven't been that involved and feel a little uncomfortable representing, where it is. So we can reply via email over the next few days as a group, back and forth, who thinks they could be available and who would like to present. I'll look at the presentation. It's been at the meetings to go and attend and make the presentation. So
I don't mind going. I was
Okay.
assuming that Peter or Dylan were going to be presenting for some reason. I don't know why, but
Yeah, they'll be presenting to the select board. Yeah, an abbreviated version of what they presented on last
I
night.
think that's good because like they're the authorities. It'd be kind of
Yeah,
comical for me to go through it.
Yeah, you're not going to present on it. Don't worry.
Okay. But I'm happy to go to like help support and show our participation and comment on it. I went to, if not all meetings, I think I might have missed one in there, but
That'd be great, Shelley.
Yeah.
Be much
Lori
appreciated.
went a bunch too. I know Russ went at least a few times as well. I feel like I might have saw you too, Craig. I think
Yeah, I went to a couple.
yeah.
Good. Well, so the next meeting would normally be pretty close to the 4th and all the holidays. I'm wondering if we want to do what we did this last time and go for 2 months from now instead of 1 month.
That sounds good.
Okay, so let's look at the last Thursday in July.
Last Thursday in July. Well, there's 5 Thursdays in July.
Ooh.
Oh,
So,
there are.
Yeah, do we
30th.
usually do the 4th Thursday?
I think we usually do, yes. So that would be the 23rd, is that right?
23rd, yeah.
Sure. That works.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Have a good
See
night.
you later. All right,
Bye.
bye-bye.